Welcome to Entanglement Radio, transcendent talk for the conscious mind. Join us for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science, new thought, and conscious healing. Explore the potential and infinite possibilities of what it means to be human with some of the best guests in radio. At Entanglement Radio, it is all connected. Now, here is your host, Angela Levesque, on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Welcome and good day. You are listening to Entanglement Radio here on OMTimes Radio with Angela Levesque, and I'm coming to you live today from the beautiful foothills of the Rocky Mountains here in Boise, Idaho. One of my absolute favorite topics today, we are talking about gratitude, showing thanks and appreciation and just how that can transform our lives. So we have author here, Nina Lesowitz, and she's actually the co-author of The Grateful Life, The Secret to Happiness and the Science of Contentment. And she wrote that actually with Beth Sammons. And so we are going to be talking all about how we can use gratitude, the benefits of gratitude, the science behind it. I just find it to be one of the most transformative tools out there, and that's what this show is all about. So next week we are switching gears, and we're going to be talking about accessing the Akasha with world-renowned teacher Ernesto Ortiz, and I'm excited about that because I don't know much about the Akashic records other than I have a vague idea of what they are, so I'm excited to dive into that topic and talk about something incredibly spiritual, and then how we take this information and bring it into our daily lives, which is what this show is all about. If you need to get a hold of me at any time during the week, you can email me at angela@hestiahealth.com. You can find me on Facebook and on Twitter at Entanglement Radio, as well as Hestia Health. So feel free to connect with me. Like I said last week, especially in the early days of this show, is I'm trying to really hone in on topics you like and just learn a little bit more about my listeners. So like I said, today we are talking about gratitude, and I want to tell a quick little story here. So I actually teach an 8-week class in mind body medicine for cancer survivorship, and one of the lessons I teach is on gratitude as a transformative tool. And so I used to teach this class in the evenings, and so my husband and I would kind of do a kid swap. He would get home from work, and then he would be able to watch my son, and I would head out to class. And I remember one day he shows up late. And so the whole time I'm sitting there waiting for him to show up, and I'm starting to get that really strong stress response in the body, and I'm cursing him out, and I'm mad. And so finally he shows up, and I have 10 minutes to get to class and park and show up. So I'm in the car, and I can feel I'm just fuming, and my body's all stressed out. And I'm thinking, stop. Wait a second. You teach people about gratitude. You teach people about paying attention to their mind, about indulging in emotions in that way. And so I decided, instead of cursing my husband all the way out to the class, I decided to sit there in the car and go on a rampage of appreciation. So I sat there and I thought of every single thing I could be grateful for. It was really hot. It was the middle of July, and I was thinking about how thankful I was for my air conditioning, how awesome it is that I have this amazing child that, that requires watching, and that I have this amazing job to go to, and thank you, thank you, thank you. And so not only was every single light green on the way there, I actually showed up 3 minutes early. And instead of showing up in this really frantic, frenetic state, I showed up calm, peaceful, centered, and just with a big, humongous heart. So we get to choose. And so today we're going to talk about how gratitude has helped people transform their lives in far more challenging situations than being a couple minutes late for work. So with that, let me introduce my guests. Nina Lesowitz is an award-winning marketing professional who runs Spinergy Group, which represents authors, corporate clients, and nonprofits. She, along with Sammons, co-authored the best-selling Living Life as a Thank You, and What Would You Do If You Knew You Could Not Fail? How to Transform Fear into Courage. She lives in sales in the San Francisco Bay Area with her husband and produces events for Litquake, San Francisco's literary festival. So with that, I feel honored and blessed to welcome Nina Lesowitz to the program. Hello, Nina. How are you doing?
Hi, Angela. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for the great work that you do. I love that story you just told.
Well, we do have a choice, don't we? We get to decide. And I thought, you know what? In this moment, I can choose better than being all crazy and being in a place of resentment and anger and frustration. So
Yeah, and then the lights were all green. I just love that.
we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But first, I'm interested to ask you because this is not The Grateful Life is not the first book that you've written on gratitude. You also wrote a book called Living Life as a Thank You. What is different from this book, and what have you seen changed since you wrote that first book? I think it was in 2009.
Yeah, that's a great question. The book Living Life as a Thank You follows a very similar format to The Grateful Life in that it includes inspirational stories, tips and resources. But aside from, at that time, reporting on the groundbreaking work by Dr. Robert Emmons, most of the benefits attributed to an attitude of gratitude were anecdotal, like the story you just told. But what's happened since 2009 is that so many scientists have validated the benefits of a grateful attitude in so many different studies. In fact, I attended a gratitude summit put on by UC Berkeley. It actually was called the Gratitude Summit. And UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center, and listened to leading researchers and scientists and neuropsychologists from across the country talk about studies that actually prove the connection between a grateful attitude and better health, better mental health, better physical health, and all numerous other benefits. So that's really, really exciting. And that's why in the subtitle we said the science of contentment.
Well, it's interesting because, this whole movement of positive psychology, where we used to just focus on what went wrong when we see things like such as, personality disorders and depression and anxiety and all of those things. And then people like Martin Seligman and Robert Emmons, they decided that, hey, wait a second. How about we study what brings more joy and purpose and meaning and all of those things. And I think I think that switch is just so indicative of sort of, we were talking before we were on air, kind of this trend in consciousness towards really wanting to live that best life. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I mentioned UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center, and that's precisely what they are doing, is they're, instead of focusing on the negative, they're focusing on all these positive movements. Absolutely. I completely agree. And you mentioned Dr. Seligman, who's a pioneer in the positive psychology movements. They have done amazing studies that found that gratitude is a powerful antidote to depression.
It's interesting to me because as much as and that's part of this show too is to talk about some of the science that supports some of the bigger spiritual questions of life. And I always I smile inside because it's amazing. We've been talking about appreciation and gratitude, and that has been something that's been well explored in mysticism and spirituality.
Religion.
Yes, and religion, right.
Absolutely.
And it's always it just gives me a little smile to say, like, of course the science is there. But I also appreciate that, there's a lot of people that need to have that science to be able to get on board. So
Exactly.
how do you feel is this something when you're reading the science, are you thinking, oh, wow, was it showing you something new, or you're just like, oh, it's just catching up to something that I already knew in my heart?
Yeah, definitely the latter, because I know when I report those findings, I say, duh, we already knew that, right? But yes, but some people do want to want to know exactly, where that information came from. So it is great to be able to have a statistic or a study that points directly to the connection between the practice of gratitude and better mental health. I mean, let me just give you one example.
Yeah.
With Dr. Seligman. These statistics are phenomenal When he asked their patients to take time each day to write down 3 things that went well and why they thought so, 15 days later, almost 95% of the people said they felt significantly less depressed. So their scores on a widely used depression inventory dropped by 50%, which is equivalent to the improvement seen with medication or psychotherapy. The individuals in the placebo-controlled group who wrote down 3 childhood memories each day did not experience an improvement in their depressive symptoms. So how powerful is that?
That's amazing. And just by listing 3 things every day, I mean, that it's not like you have to devote your whole life to sitting under a tree and Om. You're just
Right.
paying
Yeah.
attention to looking at your day and paying attention.
Yes, I mean, when you did your intro, when you said that you felt like gratitude was one of the most transformational tools available to us, I also wanted to add that it's one of the easiest, because I know you mentioned having a young child. Well, back when my children were young and I was working full time and I had so much going on in my life, I used to read these books that just didn't apply to my life. I mean, books with titles like Stopping. Who could stop when you had to make lunch and breakfast and bring cookies to school and work full time and get the car fixed? I mean, it was just impossible because I was so busy. And even if you're not so busy, many people just don't have the time to devote to meditating for 2 hours a day or joining an organization or going and down to, oh goodness, there's just so many places, so many opportunities to really go into just to expand your mind and your spirit. But if you don't have the time, sometimes people just give up. And so gratitude is something that's just so easy. All you have to do is just turn your thoughts around, as you mentioned earlier, and it can completely transform your outlook.
Well, I want to dive into that a little bit more, as well as talk about a few more of the studies. We are talking about the subject of The Grateful Life, written by Nina Lesowitz and Sammons, and we'll be right back here on Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
The Laying On of Hands Healing Radio Show is about treating the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. Join me, Charles Smith, as I share life-balancing measures such as nutrition and spiritual practices to help you take charge of your own health and wellness every Thursday at 7 p.m. on OMTimes Radio.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know, I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
All right, we are back, and you're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque right here on OMTimes Radio. My guest today is Nina Lesowitz, and we are talking about being grateful and the science of contentment. And I'm quite excited here to have this conversation because this is one of my all-time favorite topics. So I just want to, before the break, we talked a little bit about some of the research, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. And also, because I know this often happens, especially in the medical community, is that we have all of the research to bolster up what we're trying to say, but it takes some time to filter its way down into policy and into the day-to-day actions a lot of these organizations. So I guess I'll start with that question. Do you see that this science is being put into policy in different avenues of society?
Yes, absolutely. Not only in health, I mean, we could talk a lot about that, but particularly in business, where there may be business people who have that attitude that you and I discussed before the break, that where they need proof. So, for instance, speaking of proof, companies with happy workers have 33% higher profitability. Well, that doesn't surprise you or I, but that was the result of a Gallup poll, and also 51% lower turnover. So employees are more productive. And again, that's something that's not surprising. However, now that those statistics are out there, and now there are people that are going into the workplace to teach managers how to incorporate gratitude and positivity into the workplace in order to bolster the bottom line. And so I absolutely love that. There are, let's see, so there's numerous tips now. For instance, at UC Berkeley, there is the Administration of Finance office there created an appreciation platform that allows employees to recognize each other's contributions. Other businesses don't necessarily need to build a website. They can simply have a bulletin board where people can tack up who they're grateful toward that day. So, for instance, some of what these people who teach this in the workplace say is don't necessarily, don't just say, oh, I'm grateful for coffee in the morning, but actually think about the person who made the coffee that morning. And, once you start doing this in the workplace, it not only has an effect on the bottom line, people are so much more committed to the organization. It engenders so much more connectivity between employees. I mean, who wouldn't want that in your workplace? So that I think that's a good example of a place where people need proof, but now that the proof is there, it has the potential to change millions of people's lives.
I want to reiterate something that you said, because I don't think I quite thought of it in that way, but it makes so much sense. That idea of, and there's an example in your book that you can be grateful for the chair, but it takes it a step further to think of the person who created that chair and have sort of a direction or maybe even an anchor for this expression of gratitude. And I think that that's really interesting. Why do you think it seems to be more important to be grateful for what you have, but then also be grateful to that person that provided that for you?
Because I think that takes it so much deeper. It's some people, I've heard from a few people that when they just list 3 things that they're grateful for, it doesn't necessarily change their mood. And the thing is if you're just giving rote thanks, if you're just every night saying, well, I'm grateful for a roof over my head, then you're not really noticing the bigger picture. You're not really getting into a grateful mindset. So I do love that example that you just gave, so that we're grateful not only for the chair, but to really think about how that chair came to your house and who made that chair. And if you just keep going with it, then that's what's really going to put you into a grateful mindset.
So let's move past the workplace. And obviously gratitude, we talked more about gratitude with depression. What are some other ways that gratitude has been shown in studies to impact our well-being and just general wellness, I guess?
Well, definitely in health. I mean, one of the studies that's taking place Right now, the Greater Good Science Center has awarded 14 grants, which is supported by funding from the John Templeton Foundation. And just one of the leading researchers is from Harvard Medical School, Dr. Jeff Huffman. And he hasn't finalized his study yet, but he presented some of the findings at this summit about how the people who are grateful, who have recently suffered a heart attack, both healed faster and were less likely to have another heart attack. And I've been really looking for and just finding out, it's funny, whenever you're focused on something, then it just comes to you, right? Mm-hmm. So there's just so many studies about how when people are grateful that they survived, or grateful that they've been given another chance, or grateful for the people around them who helped to pull them through, then that helps them to heal. It really does. And I just love that. It makes perfect sense. I mean, and it actually, the way that it connects to science is that it completely affects, the neurotransmitters in your brain. I mean, it lessens when you are thinking grateful thoughts, then you're less stressed. And, heaven knows there's been so many studies that connect stress to illness and other dysfunctions.
There's a couple of stories in the book of people who are dealing with some very serious health problems, and as well as, chronic pain. And it's interesting the way that they use gratitude to shift them out of that place. And as I'm thinking about this and reading those stories, I think, what is the difference between somebody who can say, okay, I can use gratitude and help myself shift my perception on things, help myself deal with some of the pain management, and the person who just kind of wallows and says, why me?
Right, absolutely. Well, we interviewed so many people who have had the worst of what life can throw at them. I mean, everything from losing a child to having everything you own burn up in a fire, to being given a diagnosis of cancer. In fact, I would love to hear more about your experiences in working with cancer patients. And so what so many of those people told us is that gratitude was their lifeline out of despair. I mean, we are prone to despair and stress. I mean, neuroscientists say that our brains have a negativity bias, which is like a self-protective characteristic, in a sense, from back when we were hunters and gatherers and we were scanning the horizon for threats, So, in other words, I mean, that's one way of looking at it. We need a tool. We need something that can help us overcome that negativity bias, or just that tendency to wallow and focus and fixate on everything that went wrong, or why did this happen to me? And so what tool are you going to use? You're not necessarily going to be comforted by people simply saying, I hope you feel better. You need something internally that you can hang on to. And to what we found, and so many people reported, is that when you start giving thanks for everything that's going right in your life, or you give thanks for all the people around you that helped you, then you start to climb out and you start to see a whole another way of being. So yeah, gratitude is an incredible tool for people in crises.
Well, in my working with cancer survivorship population, one of the things we actually, during this segment when we talk about gratitude, one of the questions we talk about is, can illness be a gift? And I've got to say that one of the things that I hear more and more often over anything else is that they learn not to sweat the small stuff, that
Right.
they take that time out to read that book that's been sitting on them shelves, that they'll say, oh, one day I'll get to, one day I'll do that, or one day, I'll just sit and have a nap in the hammock. And they just realize that all those little things that they get so caught up with, the sink full of dishes, and the rug needs to be vacuumed, that they realize that there are other things that they would like to do. And that doesn't mean that they never do the dishes or they never get to vacuuming their rug, but realizing, again, it's that shift in perception that it's okay if they sit there and they're not done right after breakfast.
Right. And we hear those stories a lot. But the thing is that for people like you and I who have not necessarily been given a diagnosis of cancer or been given a limited time to live, or who have not undergone some massive trauma, we learn from those people, but also, again, gratitude being a tool, gratitude is one of the best ways to help us be in the moment. Because, prior to these people getting their diagnosis, their brains were constantly going, like mine usually is. We're always thinking about what we have to do. We're checking things off on our to-do list. For some people, it's very, very hard to meditate because it's hard to turn your mind off. So gratitude is such a great way to put you in the present moment. If you, one of the things that I do is I take what I call like a gratitude walk, and you just go on a walk, and you, instead of simply saying, okay, I'm going to go on a walk, I'm going to get exercise, and I'm going to breathe fresh air, take it one step further, and then the entire time think about how grateful you are for the way the breeze feels on your skin, or how grateful you are to see those gorgeous leaves rustling in the tree, and how grateful you are that you can put one foot in front of the other. And then because you're doing that, it puts you in the moment. You're not focused on your to-do list. So that ties in really well with these people who are now appreciating their lives and finding time to do things that they always wanted to do. They're trying to be here and now. But the rest of us don't necessarily have to have gone through that. We just need to learn from the people who have.
Absolutely. Well, when we get back, I want to talk about some of the more spiritual aspects of gratitude, and we'll do that here with Nina Lesowitz on Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque. We'll be right back.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hi, I'm Katrina Kavanagh, host of the I Am Wisdom radio show. I Am Wisdom is about the connection between mind work and energy work, spirituality, and living a wonderful life. Looking forward to sharing each Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with you.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back, and you're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque right here on IOM.fm. My guest again today is Nina Lesowitz, and we are talking about the subject of her book that she co-authored, The Grateful Life, The Secret to Happiness and the Science of Contentment. So I want to move from the science more into the spirituality aspect of gratitude, because I do think it's a very spiritual practice as well. And at the very beginning of my monologue, I talked about driving and deciding to go on a rampage of appreciation instead of being all stressed out, and how coincidentally, or maybe not so, all of the lights were green on the way there. And that's one of the themes that I noticed reading your book, is there was a lot of synchronicities that were happening for people as they were in a grateful practice. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. I talk about that a lot. I really find that it works on just a mundane level. For instance, when you, instead of approaching parking, for instance, with the attitude of, oh, parking is going to be so hard, and instead just say, oh, I know that I'm going to find a good parking spot, and invariably I end up finding a spot directly in front of whatever venue I'm going to. So it helps a lot, and a lot of people do talk about how an attitude of gratitude attracts abundance, and we have a lot of stories in the book about that. I really believe that's true. Going back to spirituality, I would have to say that gratitude is my spiritual practice. When I give thanks on a daily basis for a larger power, I just all day say thank you for this blessing and for that blessing. So the point is that even though giving thanks is definitely a theme in every organized religion's teachings, you don't necessarily have to belong to an organized religion in order to feel a sense of spirituality.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit more about what you said about moving into, or how gratitude promotes abundance. And do you have a story that you'd like to share from your book on an example of that?
Well, yeah, we did. I read it out loud sometimes when I'm giving talks, book signing talks. And there is a woman who I interviewed for Living Life as a Thank You, and she talks about how she doesn't have very much in her life, but that she practices gratitude every day. And she one day woke up and thought, well, she would love to join a yoga practice, and she would love to have a place to put her toiletries in her bathroom. And so she went on a walk and noticed a free basket, and in it was just one of those things that you hang from your shower that you can put your shampoo in. And then she kept on walking and saw that someone was giving a class, a yoga class. And so she just said, I noticed that when I'm present, the universe gives me presents. And it makes sense, because there is a connection between when you put out positive energy, you get positive energy back. When you put out negativity, then you are, then you're reflecting that. Then you're going to be negative. I mean, I used to be the sort of person whose conversations would revolve around almost like competitions. Like, you think you're stressed? Well, I'm more stressed than you are. You think you're busy? Well, I'm way busier. And now I just decide to be positive, and boy, it has the power to really, abundance can be interpreted in so many ways. It's not just getting things, but also in enhancing relationships. I mean, that is what people point to at the end of their lives as the most important thing. The most important thing is not how many cars were in their garage, but how many lives they've affected, or love that they had experienced. So when you put out positive energy and you notice what you're grateful for in other people, it helps to enhance your relationship with other people, right?
Absolutely. And I think I want to say two things as far as the synchronicities
Mm.
and I think that those things sometimes are already there. And it goes back again to that changing your mindset and what are you looking for? And what are you looking at in your life that kind of switches? Although I do believe there's some crazy synchronicities that happen, but I have to wonder that how many of those things were already present in our life, and it wasn't until we shifted our focus that all of a sudden, oh wow, there it is. Oh, and there it
Right.
is again.
Right. No, absolutely. I know. I use that word a lot, synchronicity. Yes, absolutely. And I mean, the thing is that people go around in life thinking that if good things happen, then we will be happy. But science actually has shown us that it's the other way around, that when we're happy, good things happen to us, which is just fascinating because in addition to all of these wonderful studies that are now taking place around gratitude, for many, many years, there have been lots of studies about happiness. And the benefits of happiness, according to scientists, include higher income, greater productivity, more satisfying relationships, better physical health, lowered stress levels. So those are, you can easily find those studies that happy people are just generally have better outcomes in all areas of their life.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I always kind of wonder, is it, the chicken or the egg? So when you think about people, higher incomes and all of that, you wonder how much of it is energetic and how much of it is spiritual and how much of it is just sheer confidence and moving through a room and carrying yourself in a different way, and how many different facets come together to create that. And that when you kind of look at the where it all started, and it's, you can start using gratitude, and that to me
Right.
is just amazing. And like you said earlier, that it's easy. It's not something that is arduous or takes 8 hours a day of dedicated study. It's just it's a noticing and yeah. So I just
Sure. Sorry.
no.
Just go ahead.
That's fine. But I just love that. And going back to that idea of scarcity and abundance. And again, I like to impress the point about mindset. It's pulling into that parking lot and saying, I'm never going to find a spot. It's so busy, or I'm going to find a spot at the front. And all of a sudden you have enough on one hand, and then on the other, you're like, it's going to be the worst thing ever. And it's the exact same situation. It's just a matter of where are you putting your focus, which I think is so important.
Right. Absolutely. And then, on a larger scale, there are people that never feel grateful or never feel like it's enough, even when they're incredibly wealthy, powerful, beautiful, and healthy. So, we learn from those people as well.
That's a good point. I don't think that, I thought about that, but there are people, and they've done studies with, people who win lotteries. And if they were unhappy before they won the lottery, a year later, they'll be just as unhappy because, like you said, it's not about the money. It's about an appreciation for what you have.
Yeah, gratitude is so closely related to happiness. And a lot of people say it is the secret to happiness.
Well, let's talk a little bit. We have a few minutes before the break. Let's talk about play, because I think, as we get older, we forget about play, and I think play is very intimately related to gratitude, to creativity, to happiness. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. Well, my co-author, Mary Beth Sammons, wrote that wonderful piece in her book, The Grateful Life, about play. And she has gone through a lot of hard times. And recently her son had a baby with his now wife. And so Mary Beth really got in touch with gratitude through playing with her granddaughter. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece, I feel. And play. Let's see. Yes, I think play is is great. I try to do it as much as possible. What I do is, as you mentioned in my bio, I now am learning how to sail. Well, actually, I did learn how to sail, but sailing is an ongoing thing. You're always trying to get better at it, and that's my version of play.
And and I think that's a good point too. That play doesn't. I can relate to your co-author, just that I have a young child, so it's you're doing like the more traditional, like hide and go seek, and seeing the world from standing on top of chairs, and getting down low, and being on the floor, and all of that sort of thing. So it's very traditional, but as adults, we still need to play, but I think it looks different. Like you said, sailing for you is playing now. And it's just, I think, getting in touch with, I think it all goes along with the grateful heart and creativity and being in that flow. And I think that is also the place for kind of synchronicities and all of those other things. I think they're all very intimately related.
Yeah. And Mary Beth also wrote a blog post on that people really enjoyed.
And one of the things because I've actually written about play too, where I quoted Stuart Brown, which you guys talk about in the book. And one of the things that he said is that the play centers, it's been like a biological necessity for us to have that. They are in some of the most primitive parts of our brains, and they haven't been pruned out over millions of years of evolution. So he made the claim that that's one of the most important things.
I love that. And if you have a pet, you can see that even an older pet still loves to play.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on from play. We're actually going to come up here on a break. And so when we get back, the last segment of my show is always, I call it bite-sized brilliance. And your book really lends itself to that, because after every story that you have, you talk about a grateful practice that you can take out of that. So when we get back, I want to talk about some of these tips and practices for those days when you're not feeling especially grateful, and also for those listeners who are listening to this and thinking, oh, wow, this sounds like something that I can do. I want to give my listeners some of those really real life tools and tips to bring more gratitude practice into their lives. So we will do that when we return here with Nina Lesowitz. We are talking about the subject of her book, The Grateful Life, The Secret to Happiness and the Science of Contentment. If you need to get a hold of me, as I said, during the week, you can email me at angela@hestiahealth.com. Do find me on Facebook and on Twitter at Hestia Health or Entanglement Radio. And we will be right back here on OMTimes Radio.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Join Elliot Jolish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jolish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jolish Hour. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back here. You're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque, and my guest again today is Nina Lesowitz, and we are talking all about the secrets of gratitude and the science of contentment. And this segment is always what a segment I call Bite-Sized Brilliant, and it's brought to you by Hestia Health. And Hestia was the goddess of hearth and home, and she's all about getting the center of yourself together before, so you can go out into the world and spread that joy and love and meaning and purpose to your community and around the world. So what we like to do here is kind of take these topics that we talk about throughout the show and give you real life tools and tips to start integrating what we're talking about in your life today. So Nina, like I said before the break, your book really lends itself to this segment because there are so many gratitude practices that you have in there. So what are some of the top ones that come to the front of your mind as we have this conversation?
Yeah, you're right. It's amazing that just a book that's just about 2 words, i.e. thank you, we do have so many ideas for the readers. One, obviously, that you and I touched on is to keep a gratitude diary, which according to the Journal of American Psychology, people who kept a gratitude diary just for 9 weeks felt happier and healthier and even exercised more. But as I also mentioned earlier, don't just write, I'm grateful for my family week after week. Notice the mundane, like I'm grateful that I have a dishwasher. I'm grateful that I have a car to get me from place A to point B. But actually, let's talk about some other ways. For instance, with families, it's so important. Most people talk about how they want to raise children who are grateful as opposed to children who take everything for granted. And first of all, you have to mirror that. So one way is to, when you're looking at your child, you can do an exercise. So instead of looking at your child and thinking, why didn't she brush her hair, or why is she wearing that? Just, stop a minute, take a breath, and just decide to do a gratitude exercise and look at, maybe the shine of her hair, or marvel at the perfection of her hands, or listen to the sound of her voice. And, it's like going back to the same sense of wonder you felt when you first laid eyes on your child when she was a newborn. Mm-hmm. And if you make that exercise a habit, it can completely transform the dynamic and the energy between you and your child. Think about it. A child picks up on that.
I absolutely love that you said that, because it was one of the notes that I wanted to bring up, first of all, about the child, because that's something that, I struggle with my son about, he has so many things, and then he'll always say, but I just need this, but I just need that. And going back to, that scarcity versus abundance, but to turn that around, like you said, being an excellent mirror for him, and appreciating that he doesn't like to wear matched socks, and he doesn't like his hair combed, and,
right.
And that, and that's honestly when I talked about Hestia Health and about getting your own center in order. To me, I'm so happy that you said that, because that was a really big light bulb moment for myself, that I can remind him to say thank you, but it's even more important for me to model and be a mirror for that behavior and the ways that I can do that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and also recent research studies have shown that students who keep a gratitude journal start doing better in school. And if you can't get your child to do that, I love this idea from another family that we know, who has started a family gratitude journal that they leave out in the kitchen. And then when something comes to mind, a blessing, an act of kindness, or appreciation for grandma, they write those things down. And then that particular family reads and shares those together at the end of the week, which I just love that. That's an easy thing to do.
That is an easy thing to do.
Yeah, just put a gratitude journal out in the kitchen.
I want to talk just really briefly too about the gratitude journal that you mentioned, because some people will think again when they think about a gratitude journal that it has to be this really long-standing commitment, and you need to take half an hour out of your day. What has the study said about keeping a gratitude journal? Could it be just writing those 3 to 5 things down that you appreciate during the day, or does it have to be more involved than that?
No, it doesn't have to be more involved. I have read numerous, studies and also books, biographies of people whose lives were changed once they simply wrote down 3 good things that happened that day to them. And so it's just the act of noticing. And also, what will happen is if you tell yourself that you're not going to repeat yourself, then you are kind of forcing yourself to notice new things. And so I think that you'll naturally transition into starting to give thanks for just everything, all these things that we take for granted. I'm so grateful I have running water. I'm so grateful. Instead of looking at the dishwasher and thinking, oh, now I have to be the one who once again empties the dishwasher. You can just be thankful that you have a dishwasher, thankful that someone invented a sponge, thankful that you have dishes to eat off of. There's just, if you just keep going and going with that, not only with your gratitude journal, but just during the day, just if you commit to yourself that you're going to start thinking about the things that you, all of the blessings in your life, then, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be involved. It can just be as simple as just noticing, and that will change your life. I mean, absolutely.
One other thing I want to mention that you speak about is random act of kindnesses, because I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about how that can be transformative as well.
It's interesting because I used to work for the book publishing company that published Random Acts of Kindness and other books, other follow-up books. So yeah, I love that as well. And the connection between gratitude, there's been studies done on the connection between gratitude and giving, that people who are grateful tend to want to share if they acknowledge that they have so many blessings in their lives, it spills over and they have a tendency to want to share it with others. So therefore, if you're feeling grateful, you'll find that you will just naturally perform acts of kindness. And then acts of kindness, as you and I know, have this amazing ripple effect. And that's not just something that we're just saying. I mean, that there's been studies, which I love. There was a study published in the British Medical Journal, and also scientists from Harvard and UC San Diego showed that happiness spreads through social networks, that knowing someone who is happy makes you 15.3% more likely to be happy yourself. And even, if a friend of a friend, a happy friend of a friend increases your odds of happiness, and even your neighbor's sister's friend can give you a boost. So this particular physician and medical sociologist at Harvard who co-wrote the study said that our emotional states is affected by the actions and choices of other people, many of whom we may not even know. So when we cultivate and embody positive states of mind, such as gratitude, we naturally emanate that energy, and in that manner, we positively affect others. So, there's a ripple effect to kindness, and there's a ripple effect to gratitude.
Yes, that's part of the reason that I called the show Entanglement Radio. It has a lot of different meanings, but one of them is about that ripple effect, that we were all connected in ways that we don't even necessarily, that we're not necessarily conscious of, and that when we, act with that sense of kindness, when we move through life with this open heart and gracious sense of purpose, that does have this ripple effect, and people don't even have to be able to pinpoint it on a very conscious level, like, hey, that girl is making me feel good. They will just feel good, and then they go and they spread that. So we have a few minutes left here, so I want to give you plenty of opportunity to share where people can find your book and any other things you'd like to leave my listeners with today.
Oh, thank you so much for that opportunity. We do have a blog / website, thegrateful.lifebook.com, and then we would also love it if people liked our Facebook page, because that is an opportunity to share your own experiences with gratitude, and that also would be the Grateful Life book / Facebook. Anyway, that's easy to find. And the book is available in bookstores and online. It's published by Viva Editions. I love this topic. I mean, I could not be more grateful that I get to talk about gratitude, because, like, for instance, even after this conversation that I'm having with you, I am going to be on cloud 9 the rest of my day.
Me too.
You know? I know. It's just, it's such an incredible gift that I get to talk about something that helps me to really, as we said, be in the moment, and also to notice what's good, and to then notice how many good things happen as a result of that. It's just, it's wonderful. My life has definitely changed. I sleep so much better.
Well,
yeah.
I just want to thank you so much for being on the show. I will pass along the gratitude as well. I will be on cloud 9 for the rest of the day. Coming up next week, I have Accessing the Akasha with Ernesto Ortiz. You can listen to my show every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern right here on OMTimes Radio, and you can find me on Facebook and on Twitter on Entanglement Radio. And this is Angela Lebeck wishing you love and light. I will see you next week.
Thank you.
The real